Do new keilim need to be kashered?
There is a rumor that brand new keilim have to be kashered. Well, we know that any kli that was bought, any vessel that was bought from a non-Jew, and now it belongs to a Jew, belongs for sure if he uses it on a regular basis, at home. We're not talking about a restaurant, we're not talking about a one-time use. Any type of keli that's bought, obviously if it comes from a being of a non-Jew to a being of a Jew, it belongs to a Jew. It has to be toiveled in a mikveh. Now we know if it's metal, some say you say a bracha, some say you don't say a bracha. It depends who owned the keilim before. But for sure, it has to be toiveled in a mikveh. No doubt about that, no question about that. There is some kind of a rumor that before you toivel in a mikveh, you have to kasher it. What's it based on? It's based on the fact that whenever you take steel, and we're talking about right now steel vessels, if it's a frying pan or a pot of certain types of kinds, when you take steel, the way to make it, the way to form it, is putting it on a hot press. They put it on a press and they press on it, and that's how they form the steel to become in the shape that we know, as I said, like pots or frying pans or things that are similar. This press is extremely hot, and being that they don't want that the material, that the metal should stick onto the press, they put onto the press, they smear on the press, they put some type of a fatty type of material, they put something that's fatty on it in order for it not to stick. Now, what type of fat do they put on it? There is some people that claim that this fat they put on it is fat that comes from a live source, and that this fat is not kasher, and therefore, when you buy new vessels that were put on the press and that some kind of fat was put on it as they were being pressed, you have to kasher them, you have to do hag'olas keilim. The real truth is, for two reasons, you don't do hag'olas keilim in such a thing, and this is an interesting thought, but not very accurate. And there's two answers. Answer number one is fat that comes from a live source. We do care if there is such fat only in case that fat is cheaper than the fat that comes from a non-live source. Being that fat that comes from a live source is more expensive, it doesn't make sense that the plants and the companies are going to use that type of fat over a fat that's either artificial fat, which most companies use today, or fat that comes from a natural source, but not from a live source. That's reason number one. Reason number two is that even if they do use some type of fat, that fat does not have a taste to it. It's not roi l'maychol keilim. It's not even proper and appropriate for a dog to eat. And therefore, we know the whole issue about kashrus only has to do with things that are edible, things that are roi l'maychol keilim, and this thing is not roi l'maychol keilim, even if it is from a live source. As we said, that's only a second reason, because probably it's not. It probably comes from an artificial source, being that that's a cheaper way of getting this type of fat. Third reason is, even if you do say that it has to be kashered, hag'olah will not be enough. We know that the rule is keboile kach polte. The reason that the way that it gets observed, that's the way that it goes out. And being that it doesn't get preserved, it doesn't get observed through water, through liquid. It goes directly, the fat goes directly with the heat. The only way to kasher such a pot or such a vessel that had fat observed in it with direct heat is only with direct heat, which means through libun. And nobody will be able to take such a pot, a brand new pot, and start blowtorching it and doing libun. You'll ruin the pots. It's just impossible to do. So, it's impossible to do. Second thing is, the fat that they use doesn't have any taste to it. It's not roi l'maychol keilim. And the third thing is, if artificial fat is cheaper than the fat that comes from a live natural source, then we will usually assume that that's the type of artificial fat that's being used, that's not edible, and therefore, even if they do use fat like that, it's not going to be a problem. You don't have to kasher your keilim if they are brand new. Yes, you have to toivel them, just like every time that a keli comes from a non-Jew to a Jew.